sure everyone loves to eat different types of food, mainly beef, poultry, pork, and other things. So I bet you a lot of people normally don't look at the impacts that they do when they go out to buy a supermarket, like how the meat is prepared, how much of emissions produced from the gas of the trucks to transport the meats to go to the supermarket in order for them to be there, the amount of these substances that go into the animal's food or use in pesticides for the plants where they eat, and the possible of overgrazing. And also the amount of the reason why they cost so much is because of the financial upkeep that they have to the farmers have to use. Whereas for tofu, it's just mainly generated from a plant, or more importantly, it's a plant-based product, which you can grow in large quantities. So I think people should eat more tofu in their daily routines, and in their daily routines with the health aspects, with the environmental impacts, and the financial backing of the tofu. In the short term, tofu pretty much provides the same amount of health benefits as you normally would eat different types of meats, particularly with the beef. But the one aspect that tofu outclasses in the beef is that in long term they do lower your from the website in fifth day, from the article of health benefits. The main health benefits of tofu will show up in significantly lower total cholesterol, triglyceride, and low density lipids, which is bad cholesterol. And what cholesterol triglycerides mainly are, they float in your bloodstream, collecting all the fat that has not been used, and then mainly binds them and stores them, and they float around your bloodstream, not necessarily dissipating it within the bloodstream. So, as having a lower amount of triglycerides and cholesterol in general, you have a less likely chance of having health-related or heart-related risk and other type of diseases, or not diseases, but like blood clots or other different types of health issues. Another one is the amount of environmental impacts that go into creating each product. There's a lot of greenhouse gases. One of the primary greenhouse gases is the carbon dioxide. The second most prominent greenhouse gas is CH4 or methane, as mainly produced from the cows, animals, pretty much the whole entire livestock of the whole entire agricultural community throughout the whole entire world. Whereas for tofu, it's only produced from food-based power processing plants, but they also added benefit is that it also helps reduce somewhat of its the CO2 produced from the plant, the processing plants, and other CO2 emissions from all over the world due to it being a plant getting the carbon dioxide and transforming it into the oxygen so that we can breathe easier, and also helps builds the hopefully ozone layer. Now, if people would eat more tofu, that would reduce the amount of demand that meat in general. It reduce the amount of meats that farmers will have to produce, which also reduces the amount of planting of manure. The farmers actually have to have a plan of how much animals they're going to raise, of how much methane or manures they're going to produce, where they're going to transport it, and how they're going to dump it before they can actually do the things that they're going to do, submitting that plan to the state, and so they can easily they can easily divert some of the money that would normally be used on the newer strategies, like for getting the permits, getting the proper disposable, getting the proper disposable techniques, or not, the proper disposable sites to help get the permits and everything. Yeah, the financial aspect is animals are for pet owners. Everyone I'm sure owns a pet one time or another, but they're very expensive, and it's like you're gambling with the pet each time you adopt or get a new pet. You don't know what type of health implications that pets might have. My cat, Milo, when he was a kitten, for the first 2 weeks, he had all these different types of health problems coming up, to the point where the veterinarian would state that if he doesn't get better within 1 or 2 weeks, you're better off euthanizing him so that he won't suffer through the agonizing painful death that he might have to go through, or other health implications that might go later on. Luckily, though, he had gotten better within those 1 to 2 weeks, so we don't have to euthanize him. And that is small compared to the mass scale of the farmers have to abide to. Besides with the health inspections that they have to go through, they have to follow a certain standards set by the state, and it varies from state to state to state. And normally it's from the University of Nebraska in Lincoln. They stated that one cow costs $900+ in total cost for upkeep, maintenance, the initial the initial cost. Whereas for tofu, they don't have to jump. Producing tofu, you really don't have to jump through as many hoops as you do for the farm, as for raising livestock. With mainly for the different feeds that they have to give for the animals, and making sure that if one cow gets sick, they have to immediately separate the cow with the other herd, or else all cows will have potentially get sick within the herd, and thus tainting the meat, and they can no longer use the meat for anything, and that would also damage the producer's income, or the farmer's incomes in general. And if people would eat more tofu, there will be more demand for tofu and more tofu related products that the marketeers can cash in on the potential. Like even though tofu has a bland flavor, they can potentially create different type of flavors, like you would see in the vapors, or like the electronic cigarettes, and different types of flavors that they're banking the flavors that they're banking on. So the health, so in the end, even though the health in the short term that the tofu has is about the same, in the long term they do help with your health, and mainly your cardiovascular or your heart related problems with blood clots, and with potentially less blood clots and other less expensive fees that you have to go to the doctors to have them check up your heart, or any other different areas that that the higher cholesterol and a higher amount of triglycerides might affect. The environment will improve with the less amount of demands on the meats, with the reduction of which will reduce the amount of cows that the farmers will need to produce, which will also reduce the methane overall. And the financial aspect of the tofu is a greater amount over the meat products, with the greater amount of marketing capabilities that the tofu has over the different type of meat products, and the possibility of So that is why I think people should eat more tofu in their daily routines.
So Nick, share with us.
Alright, so I thought you had a pretty interesting attention getter because I actually sat there and thought like, yeah, when I go grab some meat, I really don't think about where it comes from. So that was kind of interesting, got my attention a little bit. Then you go on to say that you changed it from the whole meat thing and saying that people should eat more tofu because of the environmental impacts it has, or how it doesn't impact it as much as getting meat. So then, it was clearly stated what you were going to talk about. Then you talked about how you're going to talk about the environmental, the health impact and stuff. So I like that in your intro. Then when you got your triglycerides and cholesterol, you did a good job explaining what that was. I didn't think you were going to. Then you actually did get into it and how they affect the body. So that was really well explained. But in your transitions, you didn't really have smooth transitions. I heard one point where you just said another one. There was another point where you just started a sentence, like the financial aspects, but you didn't lead into you're switching from health to financial.
Yeah.
I didn't think I heard any source citations in there. I'm not sure, there could have been some, I didn't really hear them. Then your example about euthanizing a cat, or your cat being sick, and then you're saying you should euthanize it. I didn't see how that tied into you should eating tofu, but that's just me. And then it sounded like a lot of times you were in the middle of saying something and you had an idea going, but then you kept getting lost in it, like you were thinking too much in your head instead of just flowing with what you were about to say, and you kept trying to think ahead, and it was kind of messing you up a little bit. It was kind of monotone, so you need to show more emotion in what you were saying. And you were staring at Richard a lot. I noticed that you did try to make more eye contact than usual, but you did always keep going back to just staring straight ahead. And then the conclusion, you said, in conclusion, you were about to sum it up, but then it's kind of stretched out, kind of kept going a little bit, like you didn't know how you were going to end it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, let me review Nick's evaluation of Nick. I thought that was really good. So when you said maybe it's just me, no, it wasn't just you. I was wondering why I'm listening to the cat story also. I did notice that I thought the eye contact was really good, but of course I was getting it all. So that's why it seemed appropriate to me. And I think you're right. I think that the subject kind of gets introduced, and he's got a good attention device at the beginning, but what the subject is it just shows up all of a sudden. It's not like there's a fantastic reveal that's dramatic and interesting, or you just kind of are cruising by and there it is. It shows up. And there were a lot of things that were like that in the speech, where suddenly we're just talking about this issue and it's not like it's being connected to the main points that you've got. And I found that in several places. I just didn't think it was as well organized as it needed to be. Now at the end, when he's talking about your conclusion and it seemed to go on and on, what I could see was what you were trying to do was tell us what the organizational structure of the speech was supposed to have been, kind of like a review. Here's what you were supposed to get out of it. But it wasn't quite clear enough even at the end to help make it more holistic. I thought that it was better as a result of that, but it was still a little bit here and there. I like the explanation about the triglycerides and the LDL. I appreciated the idea that there's going to be health benefits as a consequence of this. I did hear one source citation, but that's all I heard was the one source citation, the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Other than that, there wasn't really much. And there's a lot of stuff in your speech that I know that you've got research on. I think you could take everything that you have in this speech organize it a little bit differently and have something that would be a lot more coherent and effective. As it is, you're kind of wandering around, touching on some issues without really selling those particular points. At the end, I'm trying to think, well, have you convinced anybody that they ought to be eating tofu? You might be convincing them that they shouldn't be eating as much meat, but that's not the same thing as convincing them that tofu is going to solve those problems or eating more is going to be a good idea. And the idea that producing more tofu is going to be good for meat producers, I just think that's counterintuitive. You're dealing with completely different industries, and you're saying one industry should replace the other or substantially reduce the other. And I'm not exactly sure all of the ranchers, or I guess they're not ranchers anymore, the concentrated, feeding operations or whatever they call them, the massive farm sorts of things. Whoever it is that's putting those things together are going to feel like, oh yeah, I'm going to be so much better off if people eat more tofu. It's extremely unlikely. The cost comparison that you're making, that's a general cost comparison, but it's not to the particular producers or industry. And unless there was some way to translate that to something that's useful for us, I don't know that it gets you very much. All right, thank you.